Greetings to the faculty and students of Goa University. Today's topic will be on the 9 mental states. And to explain this, I would like to go back on our first session where we talked about the practice of shamatha and vipassana. So, as we talked before, shamatha in Sanskrit, also known as serenity in English, and vipassana, insight, and a form of analytical meditation. So, the 9 mental states are actually a mental process or mental stages or levels and acts as a step to achieve shamatha or serenity. And the purpose of achieving shamatha is indeed very important, because only with achieving shamatha you can attain the 4 dhyanas, which will give you the ability to attain the 5 clairvoyances or the 5 supernatural powers, attainments in the worldly sense. And according to the Nalanda tradition too, as the suffering we all endure is caused by ignorance, and the only way we can eradicate ignorance is by seeing the true nature of all things. And to be able to do that, we have to cultivate wisdom. And the wisdom which can cut through the root of all suffering is only attainable by achieving vipassana, which is unattainable if you do not attain shamatha first. So hence the importance of the practice of shamatha. So, the 9 mental states, as explained by the great Indian saint Arya Asanga, are as follows. The first one being mental placement or inner placement. The second one being prolonged placement, prolonging the experience. Patched placement, as in patching a piece of cloth to a torn piece of cloth. Close placement, as in being close to the object of meditation, not close as closing up or closing the door, but instead being close to something or someone. And then we have taming, as in taming the mind. Further, we have pacification, complete pacification, single-pointed attentiveness or single-pointed attention, and finally, the 9th mental state known as balanced placement. So these are the 9 mental states or the 9 mental steps for you to tread on so that you can attain shamatha ultimately. And we also talked about the 2 important points which we have to utilize in every meditation practices, which are the practice of mindfulness and the practice of vigilance. So, before we get into the practice of shamatha, it is very important for us to choose the object of meditation that we are going to use. And there are different types of objects that we can use, all ranges, form and formless, but in this session we'll try to make it simple and think of an image or a form. It could be a statue or anything. And the main point is usually the recommended size is 2 to 3 inches, and just make sure that the object is about 4 or 5 feet away from you at that distance of that point, and direct your attention inwards, hence using mindfulness. And when you are trying to concentrate on that, the 2 obscurations will eventually arise. As I talked about, the 2 obscurations or hindrance to the meditation being excitement and laxity. So let me get a little bit clearer on that. So excitement is actually a form of an unsettled or an unquiet mind. It is a derivative of attachment, which pursues pleasurable objects or sensory objects, and could be a distraction and hindrance to your meditative serenity. While on the other hand, laxity is a mind which doesn't apprehend things in a firm way. It slacks, hence making your mind, even though it could be limpid at some times, it doesn't seem to have the high vividness or the high clarity. Hence, you would understand that laxity has settled in your mind. So it is important to know the nature of these 2 hindrances while you are actually meditating. And during the course of the meditation, as I explained before, it is important to take the 7-fold posture. And by doing so, you will be able to achieve a very meditation with good quality, as well as being able to prolong the meditation physically too. And also, prior to the shamatha meditation, it is important, or it is very viable to do the 9-round breathing meditation practices, so that your mind settles in and so that your mind becomes more serviceable to the actual practice. So to begin with the practice, as we talked about, when you are trying to concentrate on the image of meditation, your mind is directed inwards, and as you try to put it inwards, you are actually treading on the first mental path, which is the mental placement, the first mental stage. And gradually, when you try to prolong that experience, when you try to keep that object of meditation, prolong that object of meditation using your power of mindfulness, being mindful of the object, then you are, and if you are able to continue, and if you are able to continue to prolong your concentration on the object more than when you initially started, then you are treading on the prolonged mental state. And talking about the third mental state, which is the patched placement, which means that you are actually concentrating and excitement actually gets the better of you, and your mind starts to wander off to sensory objects. And using your mindfulness again, you have to be mindful of the experience of being concentrated on the object and immediately bringing back your mind on the object, just like you would patch a piece of cloth on a torn piece of cloth, is the third mental state. And gradually, the closed mental state is actually being close to your object of meditation, and at that point, your mindfulness, the power of mindfulness is so strong that you do not need to exert much effort in your mindfulness. Post that, we have the taming. So the taming means your mind is tamed at a certain point that your mindfulness power is very, very strong. And you do not need to exert much effort during your meditation of utilizing mindfulness. You can just exert enough effort before starting your meditation, and gradually the effect will last till the session of your meditation. So this is known as taming. And then we have pacification and complete pacification. So pacification is the point where your mind is pacified by external sensory objects. You are no longer interested in them, and you begin to find a genuine sense of interest in concentration. Complete pacification is the same form of state, but in fact, the afflictions which are affecting your meditation is in fact more pacified at that point. From that point, we get to the point single-pointed attention, or the single-pointed concentration, where you do no longer face the dangers or the extremes of excitement or laxity, but you still have to exert effort. You still have to exert effort, use effort for being mindful and being vigilant during your meditation practice. And that is the difference between the 8th mental state and the 9th mental state, wherein the 9th mental state, also known as balanced placement, is very much spontaneous and natural, and there is no requirement for you to exert effort in your practice, which means that just before the start of your session, you just have to exert a little bit of effort, thinking that I will be putting my mindfulness and vigilance in this practice, and it just spontaneous or naturally goes with the flow, and your meditation practice goes with that until your session ends. And as explained in Arya Asanga's Shravaka levels, it is very much viable to use these 9 mental states with the practice of the 6 powers, also known as the 6 powers. So what are the 6 powers? The 6 powers are the power of listening, the power of reflection, the power of mindfulness, the power of vigilance, the power of enthusiasm, and finally we have the power of acquaintance or thorough acquaintance. So when we are on the first mental state, we are actually using the power of listening, because we have to listen, we have to learn how to meditate, we have to understand the all the dynamics of meditation, the system, the whole process, which is only understandable to reading and listening. So hence, we will be able to achieve the first mental path or the first mental state. The power of contemplation is about prolonging the meditation session or the second mental state, because by contemplating on the object again and again, we will be able to prolong our meditation concentration on that object. So hence the power of reflection comes in play. The third power, the power of mindfulness, covers two mental states, which are patched placement and close placement. Because using the power of mindfulness, we are able to immediately be mindful of the object again when our mind is distracted by excitement and laxity, so that we can again patch in to the point where we lost it or lost that object, the image. And same for the close placement by using the power of mindfulness. So the power of vigilance is used when you are on the state of taming and pacification, because at those points, excitement doesn't seem to be a problem, because the real problem seems to be laxity, and for that you have to be using vigilance at that point. Hence the power of vigilance comes in play. After that, the power of enthusiasm comes in play, where you are on the state of complete pacification and single-pointed attentiveness or single-pointed concentration. Finally, you have the power of acquaintance, which is used during your practice on balanced placement. Because at that time, you are no longer exerting any kind of effort, but in fact, you are using your familiarity with the practice of not exerting effort, not exerting effort on mindfulness and vigilance, but just making it spontaneous and natural to the practice. So, as we can see, especially when we visit Tibetan monasteries outside, there is an image of a monk who is chasing after an elephant, and along with the elephant there is a rabbit and a monkey. The monk is carrying an elephant goad as well as a lasso. So this actually represents, the monk is the practitioner or yourself, the elephant being your mind or your chit. The monkey is the excitement, and the rabbit being the laxity or the lethargy. So the lasso is actually the mindfulness, and the goad is actually the vigilance in this. So as the monk is chasing using the power of mindfulness and vigilance, gradually the elephant becomes white in color. Well, initially it is completely black. So that is the process of the 9 mental states, and finally reaching the top of the mountain on the picture, the elephant is able to fly as well as the monk. So the monk flying actually symbolizes the attainment of the pliancy, the physical pliancy, which comes from shamatha or serenity. And it is a form of, it is an accomplishment where your physical fatigue is no longer present, and you are able to exert your effort in all the good deeds without any kind of tiredness or fatigue. The elephant flying symbolizes the attainment of the mental pliancy, where you are able to utilize your mind and exert your mind without any effort to any kind of good deeds. So these are the attainments which you can accomplish very much from practicing the 9 mental states. So while we are actually implementing the practice of shamatha, it is very important to note that we will be facing with the 2 obscursions, the excitement and laxity. And during your meditation session, while we are staying in the 7-fold meditative posture, and with your awareness directed inwards, we have to make sure that we are free from the 2 extremes of excitement and laxity. And in order to do that, we have to be not too tight, not too loose. Because if we are too tight, if we exert too much effort on our meditation practice, then excitement gradually arises. Our mind, when your mind is too closed up, when we are focusing too much, it's too tight, then excitement arises. And again, if we slack too much, if we are too relaxed, then laxity settles in. So it is very important to find, and it's quite difficult too, to find an even, balanced mind where we are free from the 2 extremes of excitement and laxity. And there is a technique in which we can use during our meditation practice to be free from that obstacles, which is the problem we face with excitement is, as we talked about earlier, excitement is the mind which tends to take our mind away from the object. So to keep it there, we have to think of experiences which we consider a little bit sad, something like impermanence or the fragility of all things. Doing that will keep our mind away from attachment or pleasurable objects, hence making it easier for our minds to settle inward. And doing that again, if our mind feels too tight, or then we should again use delight or enthusiasm in our practice, meaning that we have to think of good experiences or pleasant thoughts which will relax our mind and give us the vividness and clarity to dispel the laxity within our meditation. So, I hope these 2 techniques of subduing excitement and laxity and trying to come up with a even, balanced meditation session will assist you in your path. Thank you.
Gune